Okay, so are you going to wear something like that on one of your big bad stakeouts?
Oh, of course.
Yeah?
I always have to blend in, so we have to go to
Soccer moms.
you can't speak.
Oh yeah. Unless you want me to mic her.
No.
Okay.
Were you filming now?
Yes, we're just kind of doing.
Oh, this is gonna be hard for me.
Anyway, what was the question?
The question was, is this like a go-to outfit for you?
Absolutely, because we have to be out and blending in. We have to go to high society, places. We just have to do it.
Isn't that kind of how the two of you met? Is you bumped into her somewhere and you thought she was one of the...
We sat next to each other at River Oaks Country Club in 1992.
And a few times at La Strada back in the day.
Yeah.
And you thought Kathy was somebody's, highfalutin,
Somebody's wife that, yeah.
But I was immediately drawn to Kristi, who isn't, right?
Right.
So it was just like, they're all hovering
You don't
around
get
her.
this kind of talk on Joe Rogan.
No, you
Just
don't.
They're
So how
hovering.
long until you learned what Kathy did for a living?
Our mutual friend,
Francie.
told me that Kathy, and I was pretty young. I was probably 20-ish, and told me that she was one of the top PIs in the country. And I was like, I had
You
no
don't say.
I had no idea.
Were you working the night that the two of you met?
No. we
No.
weren't.
No, it was daytime at a luncheon.
Yes, but we're always on duty, so you don't know, right? So
Well, we had the privilege of finding out you're always on duty on this
Oh.
recent trip to New Orleans
yes,
with you.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. What are your two favorite go-to sayings? Hold please.
I need an integrity shot.
Integrity shot.
Integrity shot.
Stand by.
Stand by, Will.
Stand by, Will. Stand by, Will. No, it's never a dull moment. Really and truly, it's been a long time doing this.
So how old were you when you thought, okay, a PI is what I want to do with my life?
I was probably right out of college. I was interested in law enforcement, but didn't really want to go into it. I knew I could figure out solutions to problems. Didn't like the criminal side of it, but I liked the civil side. I liked the juicy, infidelity and child custody. I was always drawn to helping, I guess, people find out the truth. So my dad used to own an Irish bar in Houston called Griff's, who he had for 50 years. And I basically grew up with the police officers that did security all the St. Patrick's days. And so when, back in the day, this was in the 1990s, there was very few women PIs.
Right.
And so
No, there was any.
I really, maybe 2 or 3, not very many at all.
Yeah, did you
when
have
I
any
started.
that you looked up to or?
No.
Yeah.
Cagney and Lacey.
Charlie's Angels.
Kristi Love. There was, I'm talking Charlie's Angels, yes.
And
that
so
was it.
what were the credentials that you had to acquire at that time to go out and do what you do?
Well, you had to work for somebody first, an intern under somebody for 3 years. And so when those officers that worked security at my dad retired, they went to go work for private investigators. And so I found out 30 years later that they were retiring and that they were going to go do that. And I said, oh, I'd love to do that. Love to do that. Is there any way I can just ride along or intern or do whatever? And so they ended up allowing me to get in and to do that. And I was only female doing it. And so obviously I was getting all the answers and doing it all faster than they could. So
Do you feel like being a female, like you said, getting answers faster, do you feel like being a female in the industry at that time helped you or hurt you?
Oh, absolutely helped me. Yeah, there was very few people. And I think the female clients that wanted to have someone that understood them and be more sympathetic to them was an absolute draw to that. There was no other female investigators in Houston, much less the country. So I definitely had an advantage by starting so young or so many years ago, depending how you look at it. Maybe I'm old now, but
No.
but so yes, it was definitely a plus, an advantage, and it continued on. And so I was lucky to make a name back then, and so that's how it grew. And everybody, women attorneys, family women attorneys, knew who to call when they needed somebody to be able to blend in. The soccer mom that no one would, think differently about, or would not know. Mm-hmm. So that's how it developed, and everyone was calling me, and plus, because I was a woman-owned company, we got certain privileges,
Advantages.
yes,
Right.
advantages to be able to, that we had, county and city and state had to have so much minority,
Right.
minority vendors, and so I was able to get in with that too. So we did all the background checks for all of the city, all of the county, metro. So we were just lucky to be in the right time, I guess, right place at the right time back then, and it just kind of grew from there.
What are some of the cases, like I know a few that you worked on, but what are some of the cases that you look back and you just want to go, what the hell were they thinking?
Well, what the hell were they thinking, and what the hell was I thinking? I get the question, have you ever gotten busted? Or burned, as we say. I said, actually, twice in 35 years, which isn't bad. And you'll appreciate this story. We were doing surveillance at the St Regis, and he was a very prominent individual that was coming in, and his wife suspected that he was taking women from the hotel to the men's club and other places. And so I had 3 investigators.
The men's club is a topless bar. in
That is
Houston.
correct. That is correct. Very, very well known. And so we were hired to make sure to follow whoever he was taking and to get that, to document that. And so I think this may have been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years into it when I started on my own, had my own company. And so I decided that I was going to be very clever and pull right up to the St. Regis valet. And I was going to get out. I said, well, I need you to park my car right in the valet area. I said, here's $20. Yeah, yes, ma'am. I said, I'm just going to be in and out real quick. So I went in, came back out to my car. So I'm just going to sit in my car, if you don't mind, for a little bit. I said, here's $100. And I said, if you'll let me know when so-and-so is going to be coming down so I can get ready, I would appreciate that. He said, oh, okay, ma'am. So I'm sitting in my car, and as we say, the target comes down, and he continues to walk to my car, and he knocks on my window, and he says, I heard you were looking for me. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, and no, I wasn't looking for you. Well, that's what the valet guy said. I said, no, I'm sorry, you must have me mistaken for someone else. I'm so sorry. I was humiliated. Of course, he did take whoever all my other guys were, filming. And of course, what did Kathy Griffin do but went and got my $100 back from the valet and said, how dare you? What I didn't realize is this guy probably gives him $100 every time he comes downstairs. Okay, who am I to think that
Right.
I'm going to give him $100? But anyway, that was a lesson learned. Never done that again. But you never know whatever situation you're in, and so lessons learned.
Have the stakeouts that you've been involved in, invested in, and investigated changed and shifted over the last 35 years, or are they still pretty much the same sort of?
They're the same.
I'm sure the internet's changed it.
Yes, a lot more people would like to know. They think that they can get text messages, and you can do social media searches, those kind of things. But people watch a lot of CSI. They think that they can remotely get text messages from somebody's phone.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So as a PI, what are some of the things, the inside scoop, things that you do have access to that your average citizen wouldn't be able to?
We have very, 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 very detailed background checks that most people don't get because we're licensed. So it comes from law enforcement and the credit bureau. Okay, so it's very, very accurate, very real. It's not like been verified and all these other companies that $49.99 and you get a background check. I mean, those can help somebody. That's fine, but if you really want something
Current.
accurate and current and detailed, you need to come to a professional and get that done and not rely on that. We can also, obviously, a lot of people think I'm going to go out there and do it on my own. I'm going to go out there and do surveillance. You can't do that because, number one, it's not admissible in court. So you want to have a third party that's licensed that you can present as evidence. And that's the most important thing, to hire somebody that's reputable, that can get you the evidence that you need, whether that be child custody, infidelity. And again, I don't judge. I don't care what you use it for, and I don't care what happens afterwards because that's, your decision. A lot of people, you'd be surprised, they put it away in their safety deposit box. Okay, just to have it in case they ever need it. I always say, well, if you do find this out, what's going to happen? What are you going to do?
What's the next step?
They say, well, sometimes I haven't thought about it. Others say, that's it. I'm filing immediately. So everybody's different. But the biggest thing that we have right now that people think, consumers, clients, think that they can get, that there's a lot of scammers out there that act like they can provide it, is text messages and getting into your computer remotely. Nobody can do that, okay? There is no way of doing that. The only way of getting text messages or computer is to actually physically have the phone or the computer with you to know the code and to be able to forensically download the information. And it takes 3 or 4 hours to do that, so you have to have the phone, your spouse's phone. How many people have that? They don't.
Right. We watched a thing about these ethical hackers supposedly like kind of taking money from all these unsuspecting, mostly women, who are thinking,
Absolutely.
if I pay this amount, this hacker can hack into my
Absolutely.
husband, boyfriend, cheater, whatever's phone and get the information I need. And people have wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That and catfishing is the worst.
So do you people hire you to trace down if the person they're talking to is a catfish?
Yes, 2 and 3 calls a week. I need to know. Oh, catfishing is probably the rampant, especially with the internet, as you mentioned.
So
What's
when
going
did
on.
that really pick up and take off?
Probably the last 15 years when the internet.
Yeah, and then when COVID happened, I'm sure that's
Absolutely.
when the agent in charge told me at the FBI, he says, we now have a lovelorn division. Last year it hit 800 and something million. We're expecting it to double every year.
Yes.
And
you've
what do
got
you think makes catfishing so successful for the people who are doing it?
Loneliness, desperation to have a relationship, death,
And some of these people will cultivate these relationships for months, even years.
and have never met them, have never seen them, and believe
And they're in denial.
in denial, and they've given them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it is so sad. It is so sad. And they believe they're all overseas, they're all military or oil, and it's the same story we hear again and again. When I do speaking engagements, one of the things we talk about is, if you ever fall into that situation, whether you're divorced, widowed, don't fall into this situation where you're believing somebody without checking them out. And, they've been on this talking relationship with this person for 3 months and they haven't seen a picture. They've never met them. All they had is a internet texting, typing relationship for 3 years.
So if somebody reaches out to you, what are some of the telltale signs when they come to you that immediately your light bulb goes off and you're like, okay, yeah, this is
Overseas, can't talk on the phone. Military government doesn't allow them to FaceTime the phone. That they're on a mission.
To save the world.
Yes, and to save the world. That the military's taking their passport.
The money's tied up somewhere, but if they just had this little bit of help.
Yeah, they're all. That's the same story every single time. I can spot it in a heartbeat. And I said, well, then have them send you a picture of. First of all, you need to FaceTime with them. I mean, that will solve all things. Right there, but they can never FaceTime. They just never can. So show them a picture of your passport. Now they've gotten sophisticated where they can actually, duplicate a passport, but you can always tell something. But, it's just, by the time they've called us, it's too late, unfortunately. So I always say, call us before, let us do a background check, a thorough background check on these people that you are involved with. And we get a few that's, first of all, if they ask you for money, that is the biggest red flag right there. So, and they all do. So, and then a lot of them say, I haven't given it to them yet. I go, then don't.
Well, and a lot of other things, aside from even that, is hackers, and sometimes these catfish, are really great at also placing like embedded codes within things that they'll send to you. So if you maybe click on something they send you, they can get access to your phone, they can get access to like your passwords.
There's very sophisticated, there's no doubt, way above my pay grade. I'm not the IT person, but yes, there is, I'm not technically, we've got a person that does all of that. And yes, he tries to teach me all of those things, but it's
a whole new world.
It is. And
Do they ever get caught?
No. They're all from Nigeria. They're all overseas. Yes. And as you know, with your FBI friends, it's hard to, they have thousands and thousands.
And all they need really to do it is a phone.
Yeah.
All they need is time and internet access to be able to conjure up some crazy story, pick pictures off of the internet of somebody else they can pretend to be.
And it's amazing to me because, of course, some 80-something-year-old widow isn't going to take that picture and run it through a Google search.
No. They don't know how. They barely even know how to type. They just know that they have a friend overseas that is in love with him
I would
and
have
that
to
they've
think
decided.
that your job is not only PI, but you're a therapist too.
Oh, absolutely. I just say 80% investigator, 20% psychiatrist, psychologist, and it goes usually the other way, 80%. Yeah, you counsel them, definitely. Minor in psychology, you have to. I mean, you have to help these people. And, every case is different. Every situation is unique. So you never judge a situation because you never know. But, I do feel sorry for the women that have been taken advantage of. And not just women. I mean,
Men too?
we are all female. KGriff Investigations is all female nationwide, which is a plus and why we have so many clients, because they feel comfortable having all female, because they don't want to talk to a man. A man has hurt them, has cheated on them, they want to relate to a female that understands and that's sympathetic to their situation. So we get a lot of calls from everywhere around the United States from, I want you to handle our situation.
So how many investigators do you have?
We probably have 30 nationwide or more. I mean, and we have affiliate that females that have been working with us for 20, 30 years, that we have them all in every state, that we've formed alliances with and relationships with, and that are excellent, been in the business forever, know what to look for. So whenever we get somebody that's in Michigan and Utah, whatever or wherever, we know who to call and they take care of it. And again, I'm always on the phone with them and I'm giving them updates, letting them know what's going on. But we specialize in child custody and infidelity cases. So that's what I'm gravitated towards and why I always have. When I first started, I always wanted to, much like Kristi also, although she wants to help everybody, but I have a propensity to want to help women who help empower them, because there's so many people out there, women and males. I'm not going to, because there's a lot of males too who get taken advantage of. So I don't want to just, people used to ask me who cheats more, what's the percentage? Now it's going to be 60-40, 60 probably men, 40 women. I can't say that we're innocent, but I'm just saying it's, but it's important to, to trust who you hire and to know that they're going to get the job done and the evidence that they need. And they're in a desperate situation. They don't know who to call. And I want to help the women that they've been married 30 and 40 years and have never written a check. They don't even know their bank account numbers. They've never had to deal with that. And the husband is having an affair with the secretary, and they
People who have been bamboozled.
Yes.
Right.
or they trust. They have 3 kids that are grown that they've never thought that this would ever happen to them.
So now we know if somebody's engaged, get married, going into it, you need to have the mental mindset, trust but verify.
Absolutely.
So how many women come to you prior to them getting married?
Men and women. Men and
say,
women. I don't feel 100%. Can you just do a background check? Can you just do a spot check? They're going out with the girls. I'm going to be out of town. Can you just make sure? I just have this feel. I just want to make sure. There's always signs. We say that the 3 or 4 different signs are always having their phone with them, having a passcode, changing the passcode, taking the phone in the bathroom with them, talking in private. These are just signs. Getting up early, going to exercise suddenly after 5-10 years when they've never even done anything. Coming home late, having meetings, going out of town, just different, not coming home, just, not answering their phone, when they should, just simple. They've always kept in touch and communication. Just, as you usually know your spouse and you know what's not right. I always say a woman's intuition is usually correct. And people ask me, well, what are the percentages when it's not? I said, maybe 1%. 1% are wrong.
Slim to none and slim
That's
to none
right.
town.
That's right.
So when somebody comes to you and presents you with all these facts, do you develop pretty quickly in your mind like a kind of an idea of what you think's going on?
Absolutely.
Yes, it's less than 1% that you end up not being correct on.
That is correct. I just had a doctor call me, female doctor call me 2 months ago. She said my husband's a surgeon as well. I'm a surgeon. I I think I obviously know something's going on, but I can't prove it. But got herpes from him. Yeah. And I'm like, and you're a doctor and you're a surgeon? She said, yes. And I said, well, but he comes home at the right times. Everything is, I said, well, then he's meeting people during the day. He's having unprotected, he's called escorts, obviously that's what I feel like. Well, she called me back last week and said, I called you back because you're absolutely right. She said, he gave my iPad, his old iPad to my daughter. And from that were old messages on there. And on the old messages were, meet me here, it's going to be $600. And my husband says, well, instead of $600, can it be $500? And she says, yes, I'll do it for $500 if you meet me at this address and this time and this.
And that's one of the things, too, that I found interesting when we talked about it, is I think people in their minds are like, well, he's not gone at night. These people are doing it all hours of the day.
Anytime, every time.
They're taking their lunch break and,
Yes.
Eating on the road on the way there.
Especially the salespeople or people who are out of the office. I mean, most today, with COVID, and a lot of people are still not back at the office. So they have a lot of free time. They work from home. So, if the other spouse works, they have a lot of free time. If they don't have kids, you don't really necessarily know. Some of the signs, because people ask me, tell me. Well, first of all, if somebody is going to cheat, and they are, and you suspect they are, usually they will have a burner phone. I get my clients, oh, but Kathy, you don't understand. I have 360 on his phone. I know where he is at all times. I'm like, well, first of all, 360 is not as accurate as you think. But how about that he parks in the parking lot and leaves his phone in the car, which is forwarded to his burner phone. So if you do call, he gets it, but it's not being tracked. So he could be anywhere. And guess I never thought about that. So there's just so much that they don't think about or don't know that we know just from.
Well, and even talking to you, how many people that you present the final evidence to, but still can look at the facts that you give them and think, yeah, but he wouldn't do this or she wouldn't
Still
do
in
this.
denial.
Still, yeah.
Well, by that time, we have talked enough throughout this whole time that they realize that it's usually, they want to be in denial, but usually if they call me, it's because they have that intuition and they want to know whether or not it's true or not. And so there's no harm, no foul is what they say, because if it's not true, then you know what? You have peace of mind, right? And if it is true, then you were right. Your intuition was right. And so no one's ever going to find out because you're discreet. We blend in. That's why they want females. A man is a lot, not to dog all the men in the.
They're more omnipresent. If, in other words, if you're following your client's husband to a jewelry store or something like that, and he's going to buy something for another woman or Neiman's or wherever, having a big man walk in there that.
Right. Or even in a neighborhood with everything
Right.
going on in Neighbors Watch. It's much more difficult for a man to sit in a neighborhood these days. Now, myself, I could be waiting for the realtor. I could be the realtor. I could be waiting for my kids to get off the bus. It's just harder to do surveillance being a man. They have disadvantages. That's why there's a lot of advantage for a woman to be a PI these days. And I know y'all have had some other interviews with women PIs, and we're much more successful.
It intrigues me every time we talk about it, and I'm like, are you taking on proteges? Because I think I've got the chops.
Have you ever had retaliation from a client's spouse?
Not really, because they're usually caught. I did have recently an interesting story, speaking of catfishing, and profiles on Instagram. There was a client that called me and said, I've had this relationship. They always call it a relationship. I've had this relationship with this woman, and she is an influencer. And I've had this relationship for almost a year now with her. I said, oh, okay. I said, and so, how many, maybe it was 6 months. How many times have you met her? Or say, oh, I've never met her. I said, you've never met her? She goes, oh, no.
Now, is he married?
He's going through divorce.
Okay.
Going through divorce. I said, you've never met her? He goes, oh, no. He says, we've just been talking on Instagram and Signal.
And she's younger.
And Snapchat. And she is an influencer, and she owns a gym in Houston. I said, oh, wow. So that's right in my backyard. And he goes, yes. And he says, I need to know if she's real. So I said, okay. So we did a background. I said, well, what do you know about her? Well, I have her phone number and I have her name. And of course, we look her name. She's got 26 other profiles of people using her image and her, right, and name. So anyway, so we find out who she is based on what he's telling me and where she lives, what she has told him. And so I personally do surveillance because I really want to find out what's going on. And so I was just going to go to the door and knock on the door and just say, we always want to believe our clients. I mean, you have to just be careful because you don't know, what background they are. But, I wanted to at least ask her had she been conversing with this particular gentleman. And that's all I wanted to know. Because if it was real, then he is, well, the best part was he told me that he's given her lots of money and that she's investing it in the gym. And he put her on his bank account. And I said, interesting. But you've never met her? You've never, FaceTimed her? Well, no. She's very busy. She's an influencer. She's got over 5,000 different followers. I said, okay. I said, well, I'm just going to see. So I proceed to go knock on the door. She has a Ring camera. In some of the pictures and Instagram things that she has sent him, there's two big dogs in the background. And I go knock on the door, and there's the dogs and they're barking. So I'm like, oh my God, this is her. He's actually telling the truth. So I knock on the ring, nobody comes to the door, but I know people are there. There's cars in the driveway. So I go back, set up. She leaves the house with a friend.
Visually matches.
Visually matches. I'm getting it. So I'm like, okay, she's legit. So anyway, I follow her. I think she saw my car because my car was in the Ring camera. So she, probably suspected something. She was a little nervous. She went back home after doing a loop. I come back home, back to her house, set up. Next thing I know, the police are, following me. So I go around the corner and they're like, well, they are a little bit worried because they saw you and they're scared. They don't know what's going on. I said, well, here's what's going on. So I kind of just tell him what the situation is. And he's like, oh. He goes, I understand. And has this person given her money? I said, oh, lots of money. So I'm just trying to find out if it's legit or what's going on. So we do surveillance. I don't do surveillance, but I have my guy do it. I do have some men to carry heavy things that work for me. I'm kidding. But we have to blend in. We have all types for all different clients. But anyway, I have my guy on surveillance the next day. He sees her out and about. He sees her parents, her grandparents, everybody's there walking in and out. So I guess they got my tag information on my car. I finally get a call from this gentleman that says, can I meet with you? And I said, well, sure, who are you? And he says, well, I think you know my daughter. He goes, I'm her father. And he goes, I need to meet with you because I need to know who this gentleman is that is continuing to think that this is my daughter that's having a conversation. She goes, first of all, my daughter does not write back to anybody, any of the followers. He goes, and he is stalking her and believes that this is her. And he goes, I need his phone number and of course, I said, well, listen, I'll just tell him not to stop. But my client wouldn't believe it. I tried to say, this is not who you think it is. Because I was screenshotting him.
Someone using her identity?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've heard of that same thing that happened with our
So
friend's
they will,
mom.
yes, they will take somebody's image on Instagram.
So he reaches out to you to find out if she's fake, and there was another human using her name and likeness, pretending to be her.
Yes.
And in turn, he was actually stalking the real human being.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, that was very fascinating. And I had the father calling me. Came to my office, actually. Thank God I wasn't there. I was like, oh, goodness.
That
So-
happens more than you think.
What happened to the guy? Did he
Well, he wouldn't believe it. He goes, well, I'll meet the father personally, and I'll let him know, and I'll show him everything that she sent me. I said, you don't need to. I already have. I've screenshotted everything that you sent me to him. And he says, this is not my daughter. My daughter does not respond back.
So did he ever come to terms with it?
I don't know. I just said, you need to stop because I got an order from the father. And I said, look, you just need to, and sometimes you have to tell the clients, you have to be the voice of reason to them, whether they get it or not. I think he still truly believes. Oh, and he was in love with her, by the way, and she was in love with him.
So when you get hired for one of these jobs, whether it's a catfishing job, an infidelity, child custody, any of these things, what do you think is like your average time frame from the time you're hired until the time you have the facts?
Probably 1 to 3 days. We can find out. Yeah.
That's a lot faster than I thought.
It is. And what we try to do is tell the client, go out of town. That's the best thing you can do. Because while the cat's away, the mice will play. All right? And we can kind of condense it into a time frame, and that's always the best. And it never fails. It never fails. Because sometimes they don't know when this is happening, like during the day, the night, the weekends. They're going on errands. They say they're going back to the office. So you never know. So I say go out of town. I mean, the first night that they're away, it happens. So that helps us a lot. Clients are very, they want your direction. So we're guiding them a lot to try to help them to face the facts. They hope it's not true. But like I said, 99% of the time it's true. So,
Okay, so back to the surgeon. Dr.
Yes.
and Mrs.
So she finds on the iPad all of these. So she calls me back 2 days ago and says, I'm hiring you because you were right on the money about what you had thought. And now I know it to be true. I have it in writing. Now I need actual documentation. I need evidence, video evidence of it. So she's going out of town next week, and we will be on surveillance on him. And he's in Arizona. So, so it's probably just a matter of time, So everybody in times of their life, I mean, marriage is difficult, as we all know, to begin with, right? And again, I don't advocate divorce. Here's your evidence. Try to work it out if you can. Most people have made up their minds. Some haven't. Some just want to work it out. Usually I hate to keep dogging the men because it's a lot of women too. But if they do get caught, it's usually I have a sexual addiction issue. And I'll go to therapy and I'm going to try to be better. So that's the biggest excuse. And sometimes they work it out and sometimes they don't. It depends how tolerant. Depends if there's children involved. All different. The biggest word we use of why you hire a private investigator is for leverage. Leverage is the key word for whether it goes to court or not. Okay, that's what you need it for. Okay, for mediation. Hardly ever things ever get to trial. Because once we have, video doesn't lie, once we have the evidence, and usually if it involves another person, the person that's cheating doesn't want to involve the girlfriend or boyfriend. So it's like, what do you need? Just tell me and I'll.
And didn't you tell me a story too about how a woman suspected her husband was cheating, and then you uncovered that he wasn't cheating with a woman?
Yeah, it was a man. Yeah, that was probably one of the biggest shocks because we were looking for a female. She was adamant that she knew it was going on, just didn't know who. So we went on surveillance and it was actually somebody. The minute she left town, somebody was coming in his door. So at their place, at their house.
How do you break that to somebody that's already is fragile?
By gaining their trust, by talking to them, by letting
And
them.
8x10s.
By screenshots, integrity shots.
It has to have gotten easier though. Like you're not toting around these giant cameras
Oh,
anymore, and
it's
you can
definitely
be
easier.
incognito with
Definitely
your
easier.
cell phone. And
I mean, before I send that and before I let them know that, I usually let the night progress to see if there's more. I don't just let them know the first time because a lot of people think I caught you, I got you. That's all I need. That's not true. The judges, attorneys, people like to see a pattern. Okay, they like to show that it's premeditated and then it continues on, not just this one time. So a lot of people think, oh, I just need it for this one time. No, you need to show a pattern. So you want to continue it on 3 or 4 times so that they can't get out of it and say, oh, I was taking my secretary for lunch for Secretary's Appreciation Day.
To the hotel.
It wasn't what you thought.
Right.
So
Who are you going to believe, me or your Illini?
Right. I mean, come on. We've been so. And then the best ones are the husbands that gaslight their wives. To make them think they're crazy. That's the.
But isn't that kind of a common?
Yes, but you'd be surprised once again how naive a lot of my clients are that honestly think that they Well, they know they're not, but the husbands have gaslighted them, and they're so narcissistic, and all the narcissistic.
It's brainwashing.
Brainwashing. That they, and they call us, which is what they should have done a long time ago. And they finally call us, and then they find out that they're not crazy.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they reach you? How do they hire you?
Well, it's KGriff Investigations, and it's we have an 800 number, 1-800-454-7433, but you can either reach me online at KGriff Investigations or in Houston.
That's KGriff.
Yes, KGriff Investigations. And I named it after my dad's bar, Griff's, in Houston, who has its own following and famous, and it opened a lot of doors for me, thankfully. But, you know, we're here to help everybody, and I've enjoyed doing what I've done, finding answers for people, getting that just peace of mind for everybody, and the children as well, making sure they have a good life, and you know, for the future, and for the best for the kids. Just recently, I just got back from Orlando last weekend, who reunited a parent and child who hadn't seen each other for a year. My client had a relationship with an individual for 5 years. They never married, but they had a child, and they had no formal agreement in place. And so the father said that he was going to be taking the child for 2 weeks for the summer, and the mom had no reason to think otherwise. So he never brought the child back. And the reason why it was so hard is that he was a Renaissance man. And when I say that, he was in the Renaissance. He went to one Renaissance festival after another. He was a jeweler. And so he would go and he would travel, and he would take the 9-year-old child with him everywhere he went. So it was hard to find him. So we finally tracked him down, went out to the Renaissance Festival, found out he was not doing that, found out that he was in Florida. Once we found out where he was, I had the mother fly in, and she had not seen the child in a year. And so, you know, it is illegal to take a child away from a parent.
How was that little child's reaction? Was she scared? Was she happy to see her mother?
That's a great question, Kristi. We didn't know how that was going to happen. And so we...
Because that could be traumatizing within
absolutely.
itself. No
And
telling what he's been telling.
Absolutely. That's such a great... We did not know. And so our team decided the way we were going to approach it was to approach him first. And our client was sitting in the car. And you sit in the car, we're going to approach him first and see what his reaction is. Because, first of all, technically, could we take the child away? Because the police aren't going to get involved because it's a civil situation. So there's no documentation on anything. So technically, could she have taken the child away? Yes, but you don't want to traumatize a child like that. And this was all for the best for the child. So we did talk to him. He finally did agree that the mother could see her. And, you know, she had admitted to us that, you know, in the past, she had maybe not been the best mom, you know, but that she had gone to therapy and changed, and she felt like she had wronged her rights, righted her wrongs, and that she was in a better place, and that, you know, and as legally she has the right to see her child. You can't keep that. So he agreed, because either that or we were going to get CPS involved, and they would have taken the child away from you. So he agreed, and they had a very nice reunion. It was he was the one shaking when we first approached him, because he didn't know what was going to happen, and he did fear that we were going to take him. I said, no, we're not taking anybody. We're here, baby steps, let the mom see the child. And she did. They had a nice, and we were all together. They had a nice little, he wanted his new girlfriend involved because she had kind of become the new mom in her life.
Wow.
And actually called her mom. That was really sad in front of the real mom. But she was a good influence. And so everybody got along, and the child warmed up, and they were taking pictures, and they formed this relationship. And, you know, we said it's better to start now than just have a court order and say the child is going. And the reason why people might say, well, why didn't she hire an attorney and get a court order? Well, you have to have so many months of residency somewhere before you can file. And so because he was traveling with the Renaissance, he never stayed in one place long enough for her to be able to file. So it was a little bit more difficult situation, a little bit more, but it all worked out. So I just got back last week, and good. She actually stayed an extra day, and we stayed with them for an hour or two, and then we kind of let them do it, and it was great. And so they all got along, and so she actually stayed an extra day and got to do that. So that was rewarding and nice, and one of those feel-good stories.
All right, well, before we wrap, I just want to ask you one more question.
Oh, no.
Your episode is going to drop on July 3rd, which is a very important date to you. Do you want to give a shout out to the reason July 3rd is
Well,
so
July
important?
3rd is a very important date. It's the birthday of one of my favorite actresses, Betty Buckley, favorite person of mine who I grew up with or I idolized at a young age, which I know yours is Deidre.
Deidre Hall, yes.
Deidre
yes,
Hall.
yes.
So we have a lot in common with that. And so Betty's somebody I had admired at a young age. 8 is enough. She was like the mom that I always wanted to have that I didn't have. So all those
Well,
years.
yeah, I just think with all of the talks that we've had about inspiring women and women empowerment that, we've all said, like, there's somebody who is really important and pivotal for us
Yes.
looking up to them. And I wouldn't be who I am today without having looked up to Deidre Hall.
Yeah.
You probably.
And I think so too. I've gotten to meet Betty 3 or 4 times, and she's an amazing person. And
But for all women, looking to inspire others, we were all inspired by somebody.
yes, and I've had so many great clients over the years. Some of the, obviously I can't name names, but just amazing people who it doesn't matter where you come from, what money you have. Infidelity, just incidents in your life affect everybody, and I'm glad that I've helped them. I've met so many great people in my life, and amazing people that are still friends today. So you asked how close we get to them. Most of my clients are my best friends still today, and from everywhere, all walks of life,
And
all
that
different
speaks
countries.
magnitudes.
And it's just amazing, and the referrals, and I appreciate that, and it's been wonderful, and I hope to continue to do it. Being all female is amazing, to be able to help people in that capacity, and that those that gravitate towards what we do, and it's a needed service,
Right.
unfortunately, but fortunately, and I'm glad to be able to help everybody.
Well, thanks for spending the day with us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's for you lovely ladies. Thank you so much.
All right. And with that being said, say goodnight, Lucy.
Good night, Lucy.